Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop. And in this video, we're going to be doing an initial comparison between the AR1 and also the AR2. So of course, both of these are Austin Reaves signature shoe with Rigorer. And Rigorer is a very new company in the US. You know, they are a Chinese company. But yeah, if you guys didn't know, the AR1 is definitely one of my favorite hoop shoes of last year. This is an amazing performer, especially if you're a guard, right? Very responsive, very supportive, you know? But then the AR2, I'm gonna just tell you guys right off the bat, feels really freaking nice, but I'm very surprised at how different it feels, right? So, you know, usually a signature athlete, they like a certain shoe, you know, and they keep that shoe for a little bit. For example, like the KDs from the AR1, his first shoe to the second shoe, I feel like they changed it up a good amount. So, well, we'll be doing an initial comparison, of course. And as far as the price goes, the AR1 is $100. It was on sale for $80 for some of the sales that they've had over at Rigorer. But the AR2, it seems to be retailing for $120, right? So they did increase the price by $20, which kind of sucks, but they definitely did improve upon the cushioning setup, which we'll get into. So if you guys do want to cop either of these shoes, I'll try to leave a link in the description box. But let's get it started off with the Tracciones. And yeah, the AR1 has top tier traction, one of the best traction that you get right now. Like, so if you're playing on a clean court, amazing freaking bite. Also has a nice loud high pitch squeak, which of course has nothing to do with performance, but I do like to have a little bit of squeak in my hoop shoes, and I feel like a lot of hoopers like that as well. But yeah, clean court, freaking amazing. Also, dust performance is really nice. It doesn't really pick up dust at all. And durability, I would say it's okay. You know, not the best because rubber is a little bit on the softer side of things. But yeah, this traction was absolutely freaking amazing. And then here in the AR2, I haven't played in these yet, so take that with a grain of salt, but I'm just trying it on my wood floors, right? And it seems to have an amazing bite, pretty much just as hard as the AR1. And also doesn't seem to be affected by dust that much, because on my wood floors, I have a lot of dog hair, I have a lot of dust, you know? And it's winter, it's really dry, and it seems to be biting through all of that really, really well. And this is translucent, right? The AR1, all of the colorways that I have that have a solid rubber outsole is really, really nice, right? But then on dust for the translucent pair that I have with the Milky Way colorway, it does pick up a little bit of dust. So yeah, that kind of sucked with the AR1, but here in the AR2, it doesn't seem like that is that big of a deal, right? Also, durability seems really good in the shoe as well. So the AR2 feels like it'll be very, very good, just like the AR1. So good on Rigorer. You know, thank you for giving us a really nice rubber compound, right? And now moving on to the heel to toe transition. So the AR1 was a little bit more on the stiffer side of things, right? So here in the heel, we have a nice rounded shape, right? And then also in the forefoot, a nice rounded shape. So because of the shape, it does feel pretty smooth. However, here in the like, it's a really stiff freaking shoe. You know what I mean? You can once you break it in, it starts to flex a little bit more. This is pretty much kind of like dead stock. You know what I mean? But yeah, it is a pretty stiff sole for the overall shoe, right? But here in the AR2, it's way softer here in the heel. We have a crazier rounded shape, of course, right? So that feels nice, but also they are using a nice foam, right? So they are calling this the Showtime foam, which we'll get into. So it's really soft here in the heel. We have a good amount of compression. And then coming here into the forefoot, we have a little bit more curve, as you guys can see. Look at that. Way more curve compared to the AR1, right? And then we have like, it's way more flexible, right? But also you can see pretty much the full length plate, right? It starts right here and goes all the way here into the forefoot. We have a nice bit of flex, right? So that feels pretty dang nice. It feels a lot smoother, you know, a little bit more springy than the AR1. The AR1 was just more like a stiffer feel, right? So that definitely is an improvement in my personal opinion for the AR2. And now moving on to the cushioning setup, definitely is a huge improvement as well. So if I remember correctly, the AR1 was just using like an EVA, but overall it's a pretty nice setup, especially if you're a guard, right? If you want a good court feel, right? This shoe has good court feel. And also if you look at the strobe board is actually, they're using a soft mesh strobe board. So even though they are using like a stiffer kind of foam, you can feel a nice bit of compression, especially in the heel. And then there is a little bit, just a tiny bit of compression here in the heel as well from the outside of the shoe, right? But overall, it's a little bit lackluster if you're looking for like a good amount of cushion. You know, if you're looking for something bouncy, if you want a crazy amount of compression or something super soft. And the AR1 obviously isn't the best option, right? But the AR2, however, like I said, they are using a new type of foam, right? So they're calling this the Showtime Tech foam, and they are using an eTPU supercritical foam process. And it looks like Boost, of course, but yeah, it's really soft here in the heel. We have a good amount of compression, which feels really nice. Although it's still caged, we have a good amount of compression, right? Overall, core feel is pretty similar. You know what I mean? So that's good. But also the step and comfort is way better in the AR2, right? So the insole, first of all, is pretty dang nice. You got a good amount of thickness to it. And then underneath that, we have a soft mesh strobel board, but of course, like I said, it is a different foam, so it is a lot softer. It feels bouncier as well. They're saying the AR2 has a 70% rebound rate compared to like a traditional foam. So it feels bouncier, it's softer underfoot, and the heel as well as in the forefoot. It has just as good core feel. It has more compression here in the heel. So yeah, it definitely is an improved setup for the cushioning setup, you know, and it doesn't feel too soft or too mushy right now, you know what I mean? So that definitely is a huge improvement. Of course, I'm gonna need to play in the AR2 and see if it's actually like mushy or anything like that, but right now, just walking around, it feels really nice, right? And it feels like definitely an improvement from the AR1, and I definitely feel like it is justified for the price, like the $20 price increase, right? And then moving on to the upper, so yeah, it's also very different, you know. So here in the AR1, actually, they're using like a cord material, right? We have a lot of cords, we have like a screen mesh and also another material underneath all that. So when you first got it, it's actually kind of stiff, a little bit more rigid, and also really supportive for the overall material, right? So even here in the toe box, once you break it in, it does get a lot softer. I do like the quality, however, for the only $100 price tag, right? And then here in the midfoot, it does get stiffer. It's actually really glued down here in the midfoot. Here in the toe box, not as much, right? And also another thing that I really liked about the AR1 is the boost pellets. You guys remember the boost pellets here? It feels really nice on top of your foot. It feels cozy, it feels comfortable. It's also a half booty construction tongue, giving you a better overall one-to-one fit, right? But here in the AR2, they are using kind of like a linen weave material, so it has better airflow, but also it's just a really like thin and also soft material. Look at how soft it is. You know, comforts your foot way better than the AR1, especially when you get it at first. And then it feels thinner. You know what I mean? So it feels more minimal here in the forefoot. And then here in the midfoot, same thing. You know, it doesn't feel as stiff or as glued down. So I mean, it's not that one's better than the other. Of course, it depends on what your personal preference is. It's just the AR2 is a lot thinner. It's a lot softer. You know what I mean? And the AR1 is a lot more supportive and rigid feeling. And once you break it in, it gets a little bit softer, but it's just not as soft as this material here in the AR2, right? For the tongue, of course, I definitely do miss the kind of like boost pellets, but yeah, the AR2 has very minimal padding, which kind of sucks. It's also a half booty construction tongue, giving you a better overall one-to-one fit. And then here in the ankle area, it's pretty much the exact same for the padding. Here on the sides, it looks around the same, and also in the back of the shoe, it looks around the same. So that's pretty much the exact same. But yeah, as far as the quality goes, I don't know. I feel like I like the AR1 a little bit better. You know what I mean? The AR2 just feels like there's a lot of synthetic material in like the fuse, so that makes it feel a little bit cheaper, but it's still pretty nice. You know what I mean? But again, it is a different feel. So for me personally, I like the AR2 because it feels still adequate for support, but it feels thinner and softer, and also just conforms to my foot a little bit better. You know what I mean? But again, like I said, I still like the AR1, just a different feel. And now moving on to the fit, I went true to size, and these shoes fit me very nicely. It's just the AR1 is a little bit better for length for me. The AR2 just runs a little bit longer, just a tiny bit, right? I don't think I could go down half a size. It'll probably be a little bit too snug, but just a little bit of length there. And also, it seems like the AR2 has a little bit more roominess here in the toe box as well for me personally. The AR1 is a little bit more snug, and also with this material, right, it'll probably stretch out just a tiny bit more. We'll have to see on that, but the AR1 doesn't really do that. It just stays snug even when you break it in, right? Also width wise, I would say it's around the same, you know, like around normal to slightly narrow. So yeah, I would say the AR1 fits me a little bit better, but the AR2 just, it's not bad or terrible at all, so it's still a pretty nice snug fit for me, right? And now moving on to the support and lockdown, yeah, so the AR1 was a very freaking stiff, rigid, and very supportive shoe, which I liked, you know? It's just a really different feel from most other guard shoes, you know what I mean? Which makes the shoe very unique, you know? But the AR2, they definitely changed it up a lot, right? So yeah, it does feel overall still supportive, right? For lateral containment, it feels like all the lateral counters are there. The material still feels pretty rigid and supportive. It's just the AR1 takes it to another level, you know what I mean? So I feel like, you know, even if you are a bigger dude, right, you should be a-okay here in the AR1. Yeah, it's really good for that, right? The AR2, I feel like even if you're a bigger dude, you should be fine with it. I feel like it'll be adequate enough. It's just not as supportive as the AR1, it feels like, right? Because the overall material, you know what I mean? And also the overall shoe feels a lot more stiff for the AR1 versus the AR2, which is a little bit more flexible, you know? And of course, here in the AR1, lateral containment, I was good to go. I mean, you can see the foam coming up. My foot was not coming out of the footbed with the really, really sturdy support of the upper, right? And also lateral stability, we'll see. I mean, yeah, interesting. Seems like the AR1 is a tiny bit wider, just a tiny bit, but I definitely wish they would have added an outrigger here in the AR2, but the AR2 doesn't feel terrible or anything like that for the lateral stability. And then also lockdown in both of the shoes feel really nice so far. Again, I haven't played in the AR2, but it feels really nice so far, right? And now moving on to the weight of the shoe. The AR1, I feel like was a little bit lighter than average, right? No, it is average weight, never mind, it's 12.5 ounces. The AR2 is 11.7 ounces, right? So it's almost an ounce, a full ounce lighter than the AR1, which I think is a good thing, right? It feels lighter, it feels more minimal, it feels a lot softer for the upper and also for the cushioning setup. So yeah, like I said, it's just a really different feel. Like the way they made the shoe and the way they designed it, they made a huge difference in how the shoe feels, right? So yeah, the AR1, like I said, more supportive, a little bit heavier. The AR2, lighter, more minimal, a lot more smooth and softer feeling, right? Now moving on to the aesthetics. I don't know, guys. The AR1 looks great, you know, but I think the AR2 looks a little bit better, in my personal opinion, you know. Not a huge fan of this colorway, it's too bright for me, but we'll have to see on the other colorways. But like the overall design, I think the 2 looks a little bit better. So tell us what you guys think looks better down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, yeah, like I said, I really love the AR1, right? But the AR2 definitely feels like a little bit of an improvement, you know what I mean? It definitely feels more like a guard shoe than the AR1, you know? It's lighter, it's more minimal for the upper, you know? It's softer for the cushion, also for the upper. The AR1, you know, it's still a great guard shoe, but it feels a little bit more geared towards bigger dudes as well because of how stiff and supportive the overall shoe is. You know what I mean? So yeah, it definitely feels like an improvement in my personal opinion, right? The traction, yeah, really, really good for both. It seems like for the AR2, you know? The cushion definitely feels like an improvement in my personal opinion. The upper, thinner, but still feels like adequate for support, you know? So yeah, I really love what they did with the AR2. You know what I mean? It's just like I said, if you like the AR1 and you wanted something similar to the AR1 in the AR2, it's not gonna feel the same. You know, it's a very different feeling shoe right now. So yeah, that about wraps it up for my initial comparison between the AR1 and the AR2. Again, if you guys do want to cop either of these shoes, I'll try to leave a link in the description box. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.